What's up, ADOS and our allies? You know who it is, Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for Green Party, top of the ticket, Democratic down ballot. Yes, making the case to disrupt this election cycle until the Democrats, whom we've been the mules of for over 55 years, understand that Kamala is not our reparations. Joe Biden is definitely not our reparations. And unseating Trump is not our priority, especially given that we didn't put Trump into office, right, family? What's up, Trey X? Thank you so much for joining the live. And thank you to the rest of you who are not in the chat for joining the live. I so appreciate you jumping in here with me an hour before my scheduled time. I have a teenager, 16, who acts like she don't know how to go in there and cook something healthy to eat for dinner unless it's me working as a Hazel. Y'all know how ADOS life is, right? Yes, indeed. And so because I want her to eat something more than pizza, I got to go and cook. And starting at 6 o'clock, she's swearing that she's going to starve to death over here. We all know better than that, though, right, family? But I don't want her eating a bunch of junk. But anywho, as I mentioned prior, I'm making the case for all of it, for the ADOS movement, right? Because so many people are coming for us, family. They're coming for us because we are disrupting an entire election cycle, and we are winning. We are winning. We are winning hearts to our demand for reparations and a Black agenda amongst the ADOS. I'm telling you, what's up, Universal Mike? Thank you so much. Mike Michelson, thank you for joining the live. I appreciate you. Listen, they're coming for us. I've seen it everywhere. Just attack, attack, attack. It's not enough that we're being executed in the streets by the race soldiers. It's not enough that Black on Black crime is off the chart. Black on Black murder is off the chart. What's up, Nicole, darling? Thank you so much for joining the line. I appreciate you, my love. Yeah, it's not enough that we are being attacked and assailed on all the fronts. But you got ADOS out of NARC and in Cobra, and folks that I believe are paid off by the Democratic Party to disparage us and to drag us, to paint us out as xenophobes. Like Yvette Carnell says, she gives that fire every time. Oh, I just love me some her. She says, distinction is not division. And it's mighty funny. I was watching her show last night. I had to snap a couple of her graphs. How the Latinos are down in Florida, and it's a dead heat with Biden, even though they're trying to give the immigrants, the Hispanics, a pathway to citizenship before making us American. They're down there in a dead heat, Biden and Trump, because of the Hispanic vote. And nobody comes for them, right, family? Nobody shames them. But how dare the ADOS, who are 50% of the homeless families in this country, who are 90% on Skid Row down here in LA, who are 44% of the educated, who are 6% of the population, maybe that's been flattened with African and Caribbean immigrants, who are 6% of the private sector. Okay, because affirmative action serves white women, immigrants, and LGBTQ. How dare us come together as a tribe all over this country and expect something in exchange for our vote? How dare we not just be satisfied with lesser two evil strategy, two-step shuffle all the way to our prayer? How dare we not just be satisfied and accept Kamala Harris as our Black representation of reparations? How dare we be $200 liquid and demand in LA, $8 liquid in Boston, $11 liquid in Miami, and demand tangibles in exchange for our vote. How dare we suppress the vote by encouraging all of ADOS to turn out to the polls and vote Green Party or blank top of the ticket so your votes don't get thrown out in Democratic down ballot? How dare we? How dare we become self-interested? How dare we love ourselves? How dare we not just be satisfied with our creature comforts? How dare we care about the less fortunate of the ADOS? How dare we speak up for them? How dare we talk about being poor and how it makes them a target? What's up, Lisa Todd? Thank you for joining the live. How dare we wake you up to the history in this diabolical country that our ancestors built with their lives? So they're coming for us. They're coming for us. I have been fighting on this Facebook all day in between working from home because I'm here for ADOS. And none of us are free, family, until we're all free. None of us. So this book series is really just about marching you through the puckery of all the presidents from George Washington all the way through Donald J. Trump. Yes. And it's so wonderful because she just does it in such little bite-sized chapters that even if you haven't read the book, I love to read, family, if you can't tell. I love to read aloud. I probably need to be invested in audiobooks some kind of way because I just love reading. And I have to let you guys know that unakin to what Joe Biden says, that Trump is the only racist president we've ever had. He is a racist along with the rest of them. And so I thought, wow, after listening to Dr. Shana Etienne, she mentioned this book on one of her shows, and I thought, well, let's explore how heinous and atrocious this country has always been to ADOS since dragging us over here in chains. Nothing's new under the sun. And I'm going to make those parallels as I read, okay? So with that said, family, let's proceed so I can get you out of here and get in this kitchen, take off this cute dress, and go cook for this hungry little monster of mine who swears she don't know how to go in there and cook something nutritious. Anywho, okay, so Andrew Jackson, 1829 to 1837. Now, let me just jump right in. Listen, I tried to go through and just do some highlights of this particular segment, but it was so atrocious, I just was going to mark up the entire chapter. So I'm just going to read it and give you content. I always let you know when I'm speaking versus when I'm reading the book, okay? Make a coin, read some books for Audible, sis. I need to because I so enjoy it. Oh my goodness. My background is finance, but after graduating college, I actually went to New York to pursue my love of performing. And I was there all the way through 9/11 and chose to come to LA because it was where I always wanted to be. And after surviving, put your book recommendations down there. Thank you. If you have book recommendations, I've got quite a few. We're going to be busy throughout the rest of the year, and I'll go over that at the end. But yeah, so I came here because this was my dream place, LA. It felt like a consummate vacation. Still does. I love being in SoCal. But it is grossly unfair and driving ADOS out. And so I formed the ADOS SoCal chapter back in June. I was one of the founding members back in June of last year. And, being educated by Yvette for several years. And then Tamara Johnson-Shealy, who's running for Congress, our only ADOS for ADOS, please visit her at tamaraforgeorgia.com, donate, volunteer, support. She encouraged me after the inaugural ADOS conference to start my own show after being a guest not just a guest, I co-hosted her show twice. And she was like, you've got to do this full out. And so now it's I love doing this. I love using my voice and my theatrics, if you will, because I'm a drama queen at my core, but I love us Black and Strong. There's no drama in that. That's just sincere. I love using my gifts in this way to enlighten ADOS as to what they're entitled to. Nothing brings me greater joy than to come to you guys daily, at least Monday through Friday. Some weekends I may take off. It just depends. And like I said, AOS life is happening. I am a mom who co-parents, but my daughter at 16 spends most of her time here. And she gets educated. As I speak with you guys, I educate myself. I talk to you guys and educate you. She hears this and goes and educates. What's up, Kunta? Thank you. I love you, Black and Strong, my brother. Thank you so much. But yeah, she gets to hear this. She, came to the studio at Fox Soul and saw me on Fox Soul, and it's contagious, right? Her and her team crew are very interested in the politics because of what she hears me espouse, so she can have this exchange with her group, whom we've got to teach politics because they'll have to take this over. The fight is not just for reparations, family. We're going to have to fight to keep the reparations, and especially to keep a gate up around the reparations for the ADOS. Everybody's going to come for the reparations once we procure it, and we will procure it in our lifetime because the ADOS tribe has found each other from all over the country. So that's we're on our square, and we will be disrupting every election cycle henceforth. Top of the ticket anyway. We're trying to give a Democratic Congress at least to gridlock the system until the Democrats come to their senses, or we create a new third party. I'm interested in vetting the Green Party for us to go and do a project takeover of it. But anywho, I digress. I don't even know how I got over there. Y'all know I was born to talk. If you have any book suggestions, put them there, and I'll tell you what we're going to be reviewing for the rest of the year. But let me get into Andrew Jackson. He makes me want to go into his grave and pull up his skeleton and whoop his, what. I'm going to try not to cuss. It's kind of challenging, but I'm going to do my best. Andrew Jackson is one president whose actions repeatedly exemplified all the terrible evils of American history. The slave-holding genocidaire was no hypocrite on the subject of slavery. He never claimed that it was an evil institution, and he never supported emancipation of any kind. He actively bought and sold human beings before and after his term as president. It is true that he joined the American Colonization Society, but he was not the only slaveholder to do so, as the purpose of the ACS was to remove the free people of color from America. They wanted to ship the free ones back to Africa, so it wouldn't give the enslaved any ideas to revolt. And in so doing, remove a threat to the slave system, ship them out of here. Jackson is responsible for the removal of indigenous people from the southern states. The invention of the cotton gin in 1794 made slavery enormously profitable in the first half of the 19th century. The Indian lands in the South were most suitable for cotton, and its cultivation ensured decades of terror for the enslaved population. White settlers from Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia demanded the expulsion of the indigenous inhabitants of that land, as their continued presence was an obstacle to settlement and the establishment of a plantation economy. The Treaty of Fort Jackson in 1814 forced the indigenous Muskogee tribe to cede 23 million acres of land in what was then known as West Florida, which became the territory and state of Alabama. The people's fate was sealed when President Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act in 1830, and they were forcibly exiled along the infamous Trail of Tears from their homelands to reservations designated Indian territory west of the Mississippi River in what is now Oklahoma. Removal was the beginning of a long history of extreme suffering for the indigenous people in the Southeast who died from disease and from violence when they attempted to resist subjugation. The domestic slave trade then sent thousands of people from the uppermost slave states to the cotton plantations of the Deep South. The population of Alabama swelled from just 10,000 in 1810 to more than 900,000 in 1860, with half of the population comprising enslaved people. Hmm. 450,000 slaves in Alabama, family, to harvest cotton, which we made king to the tune of $42 trillion. And they are sitting up here telling us no to reparations. If you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it, family. Anywho, moving on. Under the same Indian Removal Act, which Jackson pushed through Congress right after taking office, the Georgia state legislature annexed all Cherokee lands in the state and distributed them to whites through a lottery system. Did you hear that? Under the same Indian Removal Act, which Jackson pushed through Congress right after taking office, the Georgia state legislature annexed all the Cherokee lands in the state and distributed them to whites through a lottery system. What's up, Jay Bird? Thank you for joining the live. Doesn't that sound familiar, family? How we were given 40 acres and a mule by Lincoln after we were emancipated, and then he was assassinated. Andrew Johnson took it away, gave us Freedmen's Bureau Bank, left it to white men to pillage all the money that black folks put into that bank, burned down about 50 of our black Wall Streets throughout the country. Yeah. That's what happened to ADOS. And this happened long before we had the right to vote. We didn't get the right to vote until 65. All of this was going on prior to our right to vote. These are the Democrats. Andrew Johnson was a Democrat who took away the Republican Abraham Lincoln 40 acres and a mule and gave us a bank and allowed the white folks to pillage it. And the white slave owners were paid reparations for each slave that had to be emancipated. Moving on. So they did it to the Cherokees before they did it to us. Cherokee laws were declared null and void, and Cherokees were no longer permitted to testify against whites in court. The U.S. Supreme Court initially ruled in favor of the government in 1830, but reversed this decision in 1832. Quote, the Cherokee Nation then is a distinct community, occupying its own territory with boundaries accurately described, in which the laws of Georgia can have no force, in which the citizens of Georgia have no right to enter, but with the assent of the Cherokee themselves, or in conformity with treaties and with the acts of Congress, end quote. But Jackson had no intention of following the court decision and said so. Quote, John Marshall has rendered his decision. Now let him enforce it. Me speaking. Doesn't that remind you of a lot of the legislation that was passed on behalf of the ADOS to make us whole, like affirmative action, that were enforced for a short spell to make the boomers whole? They benefited most. Oprah, Michelle Obama, they benefited from affirmative action. And then white folks found a way to co-opt it to give it to white women, immigrants, and LGBTQ. Now down here in Los Angeles, we are 6% of the population, 44% of the degreed, 6% of the private sector, 90% on Skid Row, $200 liquid. Because We did not continue to keep the pressure on, and we didn't vote in such a way to protect the interest of ADOS. So there are no enforcements. Cherokee and Seminoles owned black slaves. It is written in the Constitution that they get reparations that they sold to white folks for $5, while still to this day denying the black Seminole Indians and the black Cherokee the reparations that is baked into the civil rights. It's there. And they've been fighting for it and continue to be denied. While the Indians get casinos and the white folks benefit. This is what happens when you don't vote in your own interest. This is what happens when you continue to vote identity politics. When you don't stand for something, you become tethered to the bottom in this country. We've been doing this as the mules of the Democratic Party for 55 years. Let that sink in. This ain't nothing new under the sun. And this is why the fight for reparations will continue beyond the check. We have got to groom our youth to take it over and make sure it stays exclusively ours. As we have Narcan and Cobra trying to give it to the black immigrants. As we have ADOS working with the NAACP to deny us reparations. Well, that's what happens when your organizations get co-opted by white dollars. Which is why I love the ADOS movement. We're grassroots. We each formed a chapter or joined a chapter. And we can't be co-opted. We're not going to be bought and paid for. Because we are the movement. Moving on. I'm just trying to give y'all a little education in between from the things that I've learned. If you learn something yourself that I haven't raised, type it into the chat and I'll read it towards the close of the show. This is not very long. Martin Van Buren is even shorter. But Jackson had no intention of following the court decision and said so. John Marshall has rendered his decision. Now let him enforce it. The only enforcement in this case was carried out against the Cherokees. That was the only enforcement. In 1835, the remaining members of the tribe were driven out of the southern states and forced on the Trail of Tears to Oklahoma. More than 4,000 perished during this relocation enforced by Jackson's government. The other so-called civilized tribes, the Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole, were also driven from their ancestral lands. They were called civilized because they conformed to white culture. Me speaking. Doesn't that sound familiar? How the Irish were made white, how the Jews were made white, how the Latinos and the Mexicans are being made white. They're being made white so that they can get more of the spoils while denying you access to your reparations that is owed for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country your ancestors built with their lives. The Democrats are going for the Republican vote. Did you see how many of them was at the DNC convention speaking? And they're going for the immigrants to replace you. Right now, Hispanics are 56 million in this country to ADOS 35 million. And although they didn't vote in the same proportions as we did last election cycle, they're growing in their interest in politics. And they're growing in their position in politics. The CBC asked of the ADOS movement, When we asked them why they weren't on the steps protecting our 1866 civil rights law to sue for discrimination, why we weren't on the steps the day prior with DACA, helping to give Hispanics more of a pathway to citizenship. That's what the NAACP implored of the ADOS movement when we inquired of them why they weren't on the steps with us the following day. Because they're backed by white dollars. Them nor the National Urban League are working for ADOS. Moving on. I'm sorry, guys. I lost my place going on a tirade. Give me a second. They were called civilized because they conformed to white culture. Some were even slaveholders themselves. I already told y'all that. They owned us and now deny us reparations. But their lands were valuable to people who would make slavery even more profitable. And that meant the Indians had to go. Jackson was nothing if not consistent throughout his life. He always acted with the interests of the settler colonial project in mind. On September 21st, 1814, Jackson and his group of volunteers were stationed in Mobile, Alabama. He was committed to preventing the British from winning New Orleans during the War of 1812. He issued a proclamation titled "To the Free Colored Inhabitants of Louisiana." Jackson invited free blacks to join the army in their own regiments. He promised them the same bounty in money and lands now received by the white soldiers of the U.S. $124 in money and 160 acres of land. But the right hand took what the left hand had given. Affirmative action, right, family? Look at it. Just connect the dots. Jackson assured Louisiana's Governor Claiborne that he enrolled these free people because he feared they would join the British war effort or rise up and attack the white population. We, quote, "We must be prepared to act with promptness, or Mobile and New Orleans by a sudden attack may be placed in the hands of our enemies, and the Negroes stimulated to insurrection and massacre may deluge our frontier in blood." Jackson was honored during his lifetime with the naming of Jackson, Mississippi, 1821, Jacksonville, Florida, 1832, and numerous other locations for his dubious achievements of removing Indians and advancing slavery. His legacy received the ultimate seal of approval when his likeness was placed on the $20 bill nearly a century after he became president in 1928. Jacksonian democracy was nothing more than slaveocracy in action, a means of getting whites who were not among the elites to become powerful and wealthy through the American slaveholding industry, as Jackson had done himself. What's different about that today, family? What's different? During Obama's tenure, 100 white millionaires were created while 43% of our wealth disappeared. What's different? Nicole says, NAACP, Black Caucus, Urban League, no one is working for us. HR 40, anti-lynching law, and now George Floyd bill has been sitting in Congress untouched. Obama had 8 years. They playing with us. Reparations now. Amen, sis. HR 40 with no teeth in it. That's why everybody's jumping on board. Even though the ADOS movement is the one to get them off their duffs. I mean, that had been sitting for 30 years. As folks want to tell me that Cobra and NARC have been fighting for reparations forever. I ain't never heard of them until we started fighting. When we started fighting, Kamala dropped out the race. When we started fighting, HR 40 came out of obscurity. When we started fighting, reparations became a national debate stage topic. ADOS, we are here to stay. by any means necessary. I done found my tribe. I done found my family. Before, I was just a voice in the wind. Now I've got all this lovely, educated, professional support for the people. We're not on that self-individualism. We're on collective upliftment. And we get that none of us are free until all of us are free. ADOS got the conversation started, and now we're pushing pedal to the metal. Kunta says the difference is the label, but all bills are empty. Yes, they are. But ADOS is leaning in and getting it done. That's okay, family. Stay leaning in. Keep doing your part where you are. Keep slinging. The nation's story of conquest and genocide is perhaps most fully embodied in the figure of Jackson, and it is a story of the present day. Jackson represents the staunch white nationalist American settler, and he is greatly admired by many. Less than 2 months after taking office, President Trump traveled to Jackson's home in Nashville, the Hermitage, and laid a wreath at Jackson's tomb, calling him the People's President. Despite Jackson's wretched history, the effort to cover up his crimes never ends. A closer look demonstrates how eager historians have been to ignore his obvious white supremacist beliefs. In 2015, an initiative was started to include women on U.S. currency by 2020 to mark the 100th anniversary of female suffrage. I know you guys know this. A 2016 announcement by the Obama administration's Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew, would have had Harriet Tubman's image on the $20 note alongside that of Jackson, a man whose support of slavery she had suffered from and fought against. Having Tubman on the front and Jackson on the back was a misguided attempt to keep the genocidaire in the pantheon while pretending to honor the woman who stole herself and others from the clutches of slavocracy. In 2017, Trump's Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, rejected even that plan and refused to commit to adding Tubman to any currency. How many of you guys know that Steve Mnuchin, being the Treasury Secretary, is by Kamala's hand? How many of you know that he gave her $11,000 to sell us out by not prosecuting Steve Mnuchin, who was over One West Bank and wrongfully foreclosed on our homes up in the Bay? You'd be hard-pressed to go to the Bay Area and find Black ownership, home ownership, thanks to Kamala Harris, whom you guys want us to run to the polls to vote for to unseat Trump. You got us mixed up down here. We understand who she is. She was fourth in her own state when she was running for president. We said we didn't want her then. We don't want her now. Especially given that she was full-chested about saying no to our reparations. She's not doing anything specifically for ADOS, and yet she's giving Brahmin caste Indian, from which she descends, that's white in India, because the color of white is green, especially in this country, a pathway to citizenship and tech jobs with H-1B visas. So y'all got the movement mixed up if you think we're going to be voting against our own interests to be replaced by even more immigrants. Yeah, she is responsible for Steve Mnuchin. She would not prosecute as the AG because she was running for senator and she sold us out for $11,000. Oh, Kunta says he learned that from Judge Joe Brown. And Nicole says, I live in Nashville in Hermitage off of Andrew Jackson. He would turn over in his grave if he knew I owned a home on the land. Look at God. I'm right down the street from his plantation, historic site. That just thrills me through and through, sister. Yes. Nicole says, Kamala didn't even claim African American until she was running for office. Okay. And now that she's running for the VP, She claims Indian. She claims Asian. She claims Jamaican. She's an opportunist, and we see right through her. I don't care how much ski-wee she does, or the fact that she graduated from Howard. Lots of black white supremacists seeking to oppress the ADOS. That's why we came up with the distinction. Thanks to Yvette Carnell, created the hashtag. And the movement was born from the hashtag. She told us we were the solution, right? And we went out here and we're being the solution. Wow, are we coming to visit? Yes, Nicole. It sounds to me like we need to do the next conference on your property. Wouldn't that be rich? Anywho, back to the text. I'm trying to get y'all out of here. Thank God I've been reading the comments all along, so I won't be behind. Okay. In 26, this is the last para, and then we're moving on to Martin Van Buren. In 2016, former Senator James Webb of Virginia penned an opinion column in the editorial pages of the Washington Post. The ridiculous title, "We Can Celebrate Harriet Tubman Without Disparaging Andrew Jackson," speaks volumes about how Webb and other Americans try to whitewash history. Harriet Tubman should always be celebrated, and Jackson should always be disparaged. You tell him, Margaret Kimberly. Any attempt to do both is a vain effort to reconcile the irreconcilable. She gets 2 snaps for that right there. On to Martin Van Buren so we can get out of here and I can go put on my house dress and cook for my child. Martin Van Buren, 1837 to 1841. Martin Van Buren was born in the Hudson Valley of New York into a slave-holding family. His father, Abraham, owned 6 enslaved people. The future president owned one himself, a man named Tom. Tom managed to escape to Canada in 1821, but in 1822, he was discovered living in Worcester, Massachusetts. Van Buren agreed to sell him to the person who found him for $50. $50. Wow. If he could capture him without violence. Well, how kind of you, Van Buren. The buyer could not commit to doing so, and so Van Buren never paid. Tom remained a freeman. Thank God for that. At an 1821 constitutional convention, the then state senator Van Buren supported giving the franchise to those few free black men who had a minimum of $250 worth of property. This vote was used against him when he ran for president. Sounds familiar, right? Because Kamala has such an atrocious record against ADOS, I recently heard her at some black business thing that she never even let them speak. I mean, they never even got to ask questions. She was supposed to be there to talk about black business. Was it there? I don't know. It was some interview I saw her in. No, that wasn't it. It was a different interview. And all of a sudden, you know, she can run down the history. I guess Howard taught her well. She can run down all the maladies that plagued the ADOS while trying to pivot for the vote. She wants to pivot away from the atrocities bestowed on ADOS here in California for that vote. So now she's playing 2 sides and hoping that enough people don't know her record or won't go research it to just show up to the polls show up to the polls to vote for her under the auspice of identity politics. Well, we learned from Obama. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. And you can be black and not ADOS. Yes, in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Is that where she was? I don't even know. Don't even care. But this reminds me of that. How when they do different things, they need to backpedal for the vote. That's what Martin Van Buren did here. He was, trying to do the right thing and then says, listen, the vote was used against him when he ran for president. To garner Southern support, he explicitly denied being an abolitionist. He claimed to think slavery wrong, but took the position that tampering with the institution was unconstitutional, declaring himself the inflexible and uncompromising opponent of any attempt on the part of Congress to abolish slavery in the District of Columbia against the wishes of the slaveholding states, and also with a determination equally decided to resist the slightest interference with it in the states where it existed. This argument was typical at the time and allowed him to be considered anti-slavery without being called an abolitionist. How convenient. He called slaveholders sincere friends to the happiness of mankind. Don't this sound like a bunch of these liberals right now? Pretending to be for us while stabbing us in the back and denying us the reparations we are owed? You can't trust them. And published a pamphlet opposing abolition. He supported efforts to ban abolitionist literature from the mail and the gag rule, which prohibited any debate on slavery from taking place in Congress. Van Buren was a typical Northern Democrat. He bent over backward to mollify the slaveocracy. Slavery could not be contained because the slaveholders used every means to make sure that it spread. That is why Van Buren continued the removal of Indian tribes from the Southeast, asserting that it, quote, has been steadily persevered in by every succeeding president and may be considered the settled policy of the country, in close quote. Slavery could not thrive if the Southeast remained in the hands of indigenous people. The plan was straightforward. First, remove the Indians from their land, then secure the plantation economy throughout the Southeast. I guess this is why Biden wants to repair Indians at the same time talking about reparations for ADOS. He, as a matter of fact, says the Indians need repair before the ADOS. When the Indians owned us too and refused to give us our reparations. They've received reparations. They've got casinos. They've got their own lands. They've got their own everything. Okay? And you want to sit up here and say, when someone asks you about reparations for ADOS, you want to conflate it and flatten it with that of Indians. When they are the very ones denying the Seminole and Cherokee the black Seminole and the black Cherokee as descendants of Indian enslavement, you know, they were descendants of their. Let me slow down. The ancestors, the descendants rather, the ones that stand in the shoes of the ancestors who were enslaved by Indians. You want to deny them the reparations that is already on the books while selling white folks reparations, their repair, for $5. That's why you got $5 white Indians running around here. Hello, Elizabeth Warren. Anyway, in 1839, okay, let me back up. In 1839, Van Buren attempted to intervene against the cause of freedom in the case of the Amistad. The enslaved people on board the ship had been kidnapped in Africa and taken to Cuba. They seized the ship in an insurrection and attempted to sail home, but they were captured in U.S. waters. The Spanish government demanded the return of the ship and its human property to Cuba, and Van Buren was more than ready to comply, seeking a court order extraditing the mutineers and appealing when a federal district court ruled against extradition. Damn liberals. When the Supreme Court ruled that the captives must be freed, as the international slave trade had long since been illegal in the United States, Van Buren prepared to capture the newly freed people secretly and to provide legal counsel to the surviving Spanish sailors. Though this preparation was in vain, Van Buren's stance on the Amistad case wasn't surprising. He was a true doughface, a name for a pro-slavery Northerner. He wouldn't be the last one to become president either. Nor is he the last one campaigning to become president. Isn't that true of Biden? He authors the 94 crime bill, which warehouses close to 1 million Black men, more than all the women in prison throughout the world, and wants to offer passive reform while not dismantling private prisons, nor dismantling qualified immunity. But y'all want us to vote for Biden and Kamala. No. Green Party, top of the ticket, or leave it blank. As a matter of fact, check locally about your election laws, because we need every ADOS to show up to those polls. We need each and every last one of you to show up in Obama-style numbers. Vote Green Party, top of ticket, or leave it blank so it doesn't get thrown out, and Democratic down ballot. Tansy Flakes was on my show yesterday. Then she jumped on Yvette's show last night to talk about the risk you run if you just put in ADOS. They're going to throw the whole ballot out in some of these never states, meaning you can never write in, or you run the risk of your ballot not being counted. And we need to gridlock government until the Democrats can come to their senses in 2024 and run on reparations and the Black agenda. We need to wash, rinse, repeat until they do. So if Trump gets it, oh well, they had an opportunity. We've been screaming reparations and the Black agenda in exchange for our vote for the past couple of years, a little over. They've been ignoring us because they feel like they've got this on lock between the Republicans and the immigrants. And they don't need our vote anymore. And I'm telling you right now, if we don't revolt this election cycle, this will be their last opportunity, because they're going to open up these borders, the Democrats, that is, and give these Hispanics, 11 million more of them, a pathway to citizenship before making ADOS whole. And the more immigrants that get into office, I don't care if they're American born. I know Kamala was born in America, but she was raised in Canada by a Brahmin Indian woman who she said was her biggest influencer, not her Jamaican father, who also descends from slave owners. Okay, in Jamaica. So I don't know what his combo is. He could be Jamaican Indian. There's more than Africans over in Jamaica. Okay? He could descend from India too. In Jamaica. He said it, go look it up. He shares about him descending proudly from slave owners in Jamaica. Okay? So, Green Party top of the ticket and dim down ballot is what we're doing. We have to. This will be the last election cycle that we can revolt in a serious way. He's Indian Jamaican. That figures. That is why he descends from slave owners. And Kamala was raised by her Brahmin caste Indian mother. And Brahmin is the top of the pyramid. Like I told y'all, the color of white in this country is green. So she's white by standards of Brahmin caste. We're Dalits. We're on the bottom. Martin Luther King Jr. shared that with you. And that's going to be discussed in this book cast that Yvette Carnell is doing on September 24th over at Breaking Brown. I had it scheduled for October 2nd, but she has a bigger audience, so we're going to follow her and get this read by September 24th and join her in that conversation. I want you to get this book and start reading it. The Warmth of Other Suns by the same author. I'm probably going to, depending on how she's divided this book, break it up and talk about our migration I want to say in 4 separate shows. Our migration north, our migration east, our migration west and Midwest from the South, post-slavery. It's a big one. So I'm going to have to break this one down and just give you notes. I can't read this to you. It's not only is it thick, the print is very fine. So get this book. Also pick up Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. We'll be doing book club on that. And we're also going to be doing Sandy Darity's book. Pick that up. I'm going to bill out the show so you'll be able to see the notices and click on there to be reminded for when I go live about those particular books. And hopefully by then I'll be able to have you guys call in and have a conversation akin to how Yvette does on her show. Let me see if there was anything else pressing in here with the comments. Yeah, Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back in front of 3 of his children in Kenosha, Washington. This is a game Joe Biden has been running for 47 years. Yeah. If he's not done anything but be the author of a crime bill that incarcerated close to 1 million men, what makes you think he's going to get into office and do anything for us? He's already told you not much will change. So I don't understand why we're voting for a president and a VP who has clearly told us no to anything to help get you up off the bottom. They are seeking to make us a permanent underclass so they don't have to pay the reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. That's the plan, family. You're being replaced. You need to wake up to that fact and join us in the protest vote. Green Party. No, we don't expect the Green Party to win. We're expecting to gridlock Congress and the president. If Trump gets it and we deliver a Democratic Congress, we can at least protect the interests of the 42% of ADOS who rely heavily on government assistance. By design, it is called institutional systemic racism of its lowest common denominator. Okay? And so we're looking to break the back of the establishment for every election cycle henceforth by gridlocking it, delivering on a Democratic Congress, and let the chips fall where they may. What I can tell you, though, is if the Democrats get a trifecta this election cycle, ADOS is finished. We're finished. And they will see that they don't have to offer us any tangibles in exchange for our vote. It'll be cemented. Not that it's not clear to them right now, because it's one of the reasons that they're not offering us anything. They put Trump in office and want us to weaponize the only vote we have. The only commodity we have is our vote. We don't have money to be at the table. They want us to leverage it to unseat Trump. Isn't that rich? We're supposed to use the only commodity we have to unseat a man that we didn't put into office. So they don't have to offer us tangibles. Not the ADOS movement. Lean in, ADOS. Let's see here. They were about their money. They didn't care about ADOS then, and they don't care about us now. That's right, Kunta. Nicole says, what is it with Biden? He refuses to acknowledge us. He avoids ADOS like crazy. He's a docile descendant of slave owners. I like that. Ooh, Nicole, you are just on fire. Ooh, living near the Jackson Plantation, and now you come up with a docile? Hashtag sugar. I'm going to have to borrow that. He's a docile, as was Obama. He doesn't want to disappoint his ancestors. Kunta says Jim Crow Joe has to go. Kunta Green Party, top a ticket and dim down ballot. Yes. Go to gp.org. Check them out. They've got reparations on their platform. We don't expect them to win. We're just trying to break the back of the establishment and let America burn. Because if the Democrats get a trifecta, the only people that will suffer are the ones that generally suffer under Democrat trifecta. ADOS. The rest of the immigrants will get all the comeuppance, all the opportunities, all the lending for small businesses in our communities. All the gentrification will continue to go through. Everybody will be hooked up if the Democrats get the trifecta. It is our job as the ADOS movement to shut it down. Okay, so let me see here. Trey X shared he's Indian Jamaican. That is Kamala's father. This is why he descends from slave owners proudly. Just go look up his story. He said so in an article. Brahmin is elite. Absolutely, Brahmin is white in India. He is going. I told you guys the color of white is green in this country. Kamala is white. She may have brown skin, but she is white. She's married to a white husband with white children. She is white through and through, and has already told us she doesn't intend to do anything specifically for ADOS. He is going to raise our taxes too. Welcome to the live, Packanaut. Who? Joe Biden? Probably so. I mean, they're all working for the oligarchs. So we don't win with Trump, but I'm saying we can gridlock it so not much will get accomplished. If we deliver a Democratic Congress and continue to do so during the midterms, we can shut it down. By 2024, they'll be, prayerfully, running to give us the reparations we are owed. And don't forget, Joe said we aren't black if we don't vote for him. You're right, Kunta. It's just, anywho. Lisa Todd, right. Coconut. Doso. Hashtag Doso. I love it. That's the goals. We got to borrow it, family. Kunta says the only difference I see in Biden and Trump is what they say in front of the camera. Yep. And look at the way Biden was able, Yvette shared this on her show last night. She said, oh my God, it was rich. Basically, he is promising to give the immigrants a pathway to citizenship day one. Everybody else got a timeline on his platform, but ADOS. That's how you know the nonsense he's spinning is just spin. He's pandering for the vote. He has no intentions on doing anything for you, specifically. It's not going down. So I wanted to read that to you real quick. I took a picture of it from Yvette's show last night. It was fire. And it just boggles my mind that they give us the business. Here it is. Let me put my glasses on for this. Hold on, guys. It's so small. I posted it under Angela Nirvana. But this is what Joe Biden says. And I'll tell you what I said in response. On day one, I'll send a bill to Congress creating a clear roadmap to citizenship for dreamers, which was stolen from Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. Everybody can just come in here and crowbar their way into our experience, into our excellence, and co-opt it to make it into something more profitable for themselves. A clear roadmap to citizenship for dreamers and the 11 million undocumented people already strengthening our nation. It's long overdue. Go, it's in the Twitter. But no reparations, this is my response, but no reparations nor a black agenda for ADOS whose ancestors built this country with their lives. Your most loyal voter base. You hooking up immigrants day one, hence our protests, vote, Green Party, or blank top a ticket, dim down ballot. America as we know it must fall. It ain't working for ADOS. What makes you blacker than Kamala? What makes you blacker than Kamala? Have you done? Oh, York, it's time for you to be disappeared. You did this crap on one of my other shows. Yeah, you did this crap on one of my other shows, and I'm just done with you, boo-boo. I am done with you. You want us to continue this nonsense to our peril. I'm blacker than Kamala to engage you while I continue to see how I can block you. I am blacker than Kamala because I am an American descendant of chattel slavery whose ancestors built all the wealth she and the other black immigrants eat from. And there is no way in the world it should be all right with any ADOS that she get a pathway to the presidency above, in one generation, above the ADOS who's been here over 401 years. Okay? So, yeah, that's how I'm blacker than Kamala. She was born in America, raised in Canada, but born of immigrants. She was born of an Indian Jamaican and a Brahmin East Indian caste woman. That's how I'm blacker than Kamala. Okay? So there you have it. Damn, I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of this man. I just don't want him in my show ever again. I am just done with him. Oh, I'll figure it out. Anyway, family, that's my show. Remember to get your books, get prepared, get well read. If you don't want to be prayed over and reminded of how great you are, I bid you adieu until tomorrow's show. I will be sending an invitation to that show post cooking for my daughter. And I just thank you so much for joining the live. I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. I thank you for sharing. I thank you for caring for ADOS beyond your own self-importance. Thank you for your love, ADOS. I love you, Black. I love you, strong. And with that said, I want to pray over us that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, family, because you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until tomorrow, family, you go out here in these streets and act like you know who you are. And you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your day. I love you, Black. I love you, strong. Ciao for now, family. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace. Deuces.